What does Xi Jinping want? Written by Zhang Jie. Chapter 6 Will Xi Jinping's road work? Li Weidong points out that Xi Jinping's path to the Red Empire shows how old the knowledge of a great power's ruling clique is, how it has missed the mark on the world's trends, how blind it is to its own self-confidence, how realistically designed its future goals are, and how selfish and self-serving it is at a major historical turning point. Neither the economy nor the hearts of the people can support the realization of this dream anymore. The path of the Red Empire is doomed to fail and is likely to bring disaster to the country and its people. I agree with Li Weidong's judgment for the following reasons. First, China no longer has a historical background of totalitarianism. The emergence of totalitarianism is generally associated with a historical context of national distress, charismatic leaders, and a population that has been brainwashed by long-term propaganda, but these no longer exist in China today. It is difficult for Xi Jinping to use the invasion of China by Western powers a century ago to awaken the Chinese people's sense of national suffering, because today they live in peaceful times and are relatively affluent. The blurred historical memory and the objective interpretation of the truth of the century of shame by many scholars over the years have dissipated the passion of Chinese people to save the country and survive. Xi Jinping's inheritance of power from his predecessor Hu Jintao has prevented him from attaining the prestige of Mao and Deng Xiaoping. 40 years of reform and opening up policy have opened the wisdom of the Chinese people, and official lies are difficult to deceive. As Su Ben has said, since the public increasingly does not believe these ideological lies, these lies can only be maintained by coercive means. Such lies have a kind of cynical transparency. The listener knows it well and the liar knows it well too that the listener knows. Both sides play the fool's game with great care, as long as no one says it openly. Second, China's economy cannot support his dreams of empire. China is certainly the world's second largest economy, but the Chinese economy has entered a period of stagnation and is in urgent need of structural adjustment and reform of the political system. Xi's 9-year rule has accelerated China's economic crisis. The private sector, which supported China's economic rise, has become unsustainable. In short, China's economic strength simply cannot support Xi's totalitarian dream of a Red Empire. According to economist Qing Xiaonong, China's economic growth in the past 20 years or so was built on a one-time export boom and civil engineering boom that cannot be replicated, so that boom was also a one-time event and never sustainable. On the other hand, the Chinese economy has accumulated a series of serious and almost insurmountable difficulties that make it difficult for the CCP to pursue economic prosperity again. First of all, local governments rely heavily on the revenue from the sale of land and taxes from the sale of houses bought by real estate development for their fiscal revenues. On June 4 this year, the Ministry of Finance of the Communist Party of China, CPC, ordered that local governments' income from land sales will be changed to taxation, which will be held by the central government. Starting from July 1 this year, it will be implemented in Shanghai, Zhejiang, Hebei, Inner Mongolia, Anhui, Yunnan and other provinces and cities first, starting from January 1 next year. The whole country will do so uniformly. This measure taken by the central government for lack of money is a fatal blow to local governments. The huge amount of bonds issued by local governments for infrastructure and real estate development will not be repaid and will cause shocks in the securities market. Secondly, the above policy of the central finance will also shake up the real estate market. Commercial banks have already invested huge amounts of money in civil engineering, or become home purchase loans for home buyers. Banks are very afraid of the bursting of the real estate bubble, otherwise their bad debts will rise sharply and jeopardize the safety of banks. Next, high housing prices have squeezed the working class to scrimp and save to pay their mortgage. It is difficult for the younger generation to buy a house and start a family just by scrimping and saving. At the same time, many industries have laid off a large number of employees because of the recession. Those who remain have taken pay cuts, so the average income of the employed labor force is declining, coupled with the accelerating trend of population aging and the limited consumption of the elderly. These three factors together make the consumption power of more than 1 billion people no longer able to boom the economy. The real estate, government financial and banking sectors are in a state of decline, and not only will the economic boom be difficult to recreate, but the economic difficulties reflected in high unemployment and low wages will intensify day by day, bringing an end to the good old days of the Chinese economy. The future outlook for China's economy will never be the same as compared to those 2 years of boom, with high inflation and a deteriorating real economy becoming the new features of the new normal. The lying down flat mode of life, i.e., not seeking a job, not seeking a spouse, not getting married, and living on their parents' pension at the lowest level, which is now becoming popular among some young people on the mainland, reflects to a large extent the pessimism of this young generation about the future. Third, there is no public opinion base. On April 15, 2013, People's Daily's People's Forum launched an online public opinion survey called Confidence, Faith, Belief. The survey is divided into 4 items. 1. Do you agree that the CPC has enough courage and wisdom to speed up reforms? 2. Do you agree with the statement that adhering to and developing socialism with Chinese characteristics is beneficial to the fundamental interests of the broadest number of people? 3. Do you agree with the statement that only the CPC can lead the people on the road to socialism with Chinese characteristics? 4. What do you think of China's system of one-party rule and multi-party participation in government? There are 4 choices under each sub-item: A. Agree completely, B. Agree, C. Don't know, D. Disagree. At around 2 p.m. Beijing time on April 15, the results of the survey and the voting page of People's Forum were all closed. Before closing, the poll results showed that, for the first question, as many as 75.4% of the respondents chose no, for the second question, 82.33% chose no, and for the third question, 83.85% chose to disagree, and to the fourth question, 81.32% chose to disagree. According to economist Xi Jinping, the fact that this public opinion survey started with confidence and ended with fearful disappearance fully illustrates that China's ruling group and the propaganda system serving it have become a self-imposed system of political violence. They lack basic knowledge of both the relationship between the people and the government and the real public opinion in China, and even foolishly take the public opinion they have created as the real public opinion. This survey, a rare reflection of public opinion, shows that most Chinese identify with universal values and advocate constitutional democratic reform, and that Xi Jinping's return to totalitarianism and building a Red Empire has no popular base at all. Interestingly, on July 8, 2020, the Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government released its latest study, Understanding Communist Party Resilience, a long-term survey of public opinion in China, showing that Chinese people's satisfaction with the communist government was 93.1% in 2016, a record high since the survey was conducted in 2003. But the center ignores that Chinese people under totalitarian rule do not use their mouths to express what they really think. Fourth, bureaucratic groups lying flat. After Xi Jinping came to power, the bureaucratic group has been the most ruthless target. He made officials suffer. 243 officials committed suicide in the 8 years between 2009 and 2016, and more than half of them chose to jump from high buildings. The rest committed suicide by hanging, taking drugs, disappearing, shooting, crashing into trains, drowning and slitting their wrists. After the 19th National Congress, it has been found that corruption in the CCP has not diminished but on the contrary has become more insidious and more serious. While the causes of corruption are certainly related to the degradation of officials, the root cause is the totalitarian system. On August 26, 2018, the Commission for Discipline Inspection announced the newly revised regulations on disciplinary punishment of the Communist Party of China. The regulations can be described as harsh, in which only expulsion from the party membership has 45 items. Xi Jinping wants to use these CCP laws to tie up 95 million party members like a rope, so that they dare not criticize the government or be corrupt and can only be party slaves. But the result is counterproductive. Since they can be blamed at every turn, these officials, who have no political beliefs, are simply not doing any job, just talking. Fifth, China's potentially huge opposition forces. Li Weidong points out that Chinese officials have unconsciously cultivated 7 opposition forces that did not exist in the past, and all of which are the result of using force to maintain social stability and using high pressure to keep the social order over the years. The first is the tens of millions of Thrino peasants over the years. The Thrino peasants are those who have no land, no base land for houses, and their houses have been demolished and they have no jobs. The largest estimated number is 60 million or at least 30 million. The main part of the drifters is them, which has become very dangerous. They are people without any social security at the bottom of the social ladder and are struggling to live. Their motivation to change their situation is very strong, except that they are a peasant class and unorganized. Once they are taken hostage by other organizations and other political forces, the destructive power of this group of people is very big. The second is the military veterans. In recent years, their unsolved problem is many issues have not been properly resolved after they leave the military as veterans. The third force is the religious opposition, the underground churches and religious organizations in Beijing and across the country. Also, the folk Buddhist and Taoist organizations have been highly suppressed over the years. The fourth force is the opposition forces in the border minority areas. The fifth force is the petitioners floating in the middle layer of the society due to various forced demolitions, various legal cases of injustice and insufficient compensation for layoffs over the years. The sixth force is the college graduates who cannot be fully employed. These people are the emerging post-80s and post-90s people with good internet technology and strong modern awareness. In the future, they will form a big impact force like in the Jasmine Revolution and become the main body of it. The seventh kind is the intellectuals. No dynasty in ancient China would offend all the intellectuals on the left or right. Except for a few flattering intellectuals, the entire intellectual community, both the left and right wings, say they are bad. It is unprecedented for a ruling authority to have the entire intellectual community criticize him and to continue to criticize him with increasing intensity. Feng Chongyi describes the liberalism group in China that opposes Xi Jinping's totalitarianism from a different perspective. He argues that, in fact, the positive forces of Chinese society, especially the 6 strands of the Chinese liberalism group, have been resisting Xi Jinping's red second-generation perversions and restoration of comebacks as hard as they can. One is the liberal intellectuals or liberal public intellectuals. Despite more restrictions on their speech, they continue to speak out for the cause of constitutional democracy, pursuing rights of freedom and social justice, spreading constitutional ideas, attacking authoritarian corruption and exploring the path of transformation. The second is the intra-party Democrats. Although they have finally lost the last 2 collective speech platforms, Yanhuang Chuanxiu and Gongshi website, their ideal goal of pursuing constitutional democracy has become clearer. They are still fighting separately in a piecemeal manner, while turning into a latent force waiting for an opportunity to move. The third are the dissidents of the pro-democracy movement. They have lost almost all of their space for activities in China but are still holding high the banner of freedom, democracy, human rights, constitutionalism, and rule of law, holding on to their overseas positions and maintaining inextricable ties with the domestic public. The fourth is the Christian liberals and other people who advocate freedom of religious belief. The fifth is the defense rights lawyers. In the past few years, they have become the main target of the CCP's crackdown, but they have not been defeated. The protest team has been strengthened by the support of the legal community and other people, both explicitly and implicitly. Especially the 709 lawyers and their supporters have bravely faced the harsh suppression of the CCP and state system without fear or disorganization. Sixth is the grassroots human rights activists. They are still tenaciously fighting on the front line of civil rights defense, both rising up to fight head-on against the CCP's fighters when they can't stand it anymore, and adopting a roundabout strategy of stalking and soft resistance. Even in the face of the CCP's harsh, net-cleaning campaign, WeChat groups with constitutional democracy as their core belief have spread across the internet. These 6 liberal groups in China today have formed a large, invisible coalition of liberal democracy.